we'll go from there. You're using the computer audio. Okay. How are we doing? Can you hear or see anything now? Yes?
Can hear and see you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, third time's the charm. Let's see what we can do here. We're talking about domain, and you can't have negatives under the radical. So if you were to have something like x plus 7 and you're trying to take the square root, it's okay for that value to be 0, but it's not okay for it to be negative. Well, you set that equal to 0, and you find out that -7 is the number that makes it 0. That's the smallest number you can possibly use. You can use -7, so you color its dot in. You can't use anything back here. So make sure y'all can see what I'm doing. So this part of the number line you can use. So your domain is everything from -7 to positive infinity. Okay? Now, the other part that I talked about just a minute ago, I don't know if y'all could hear me or not, but you can't have a 0 in the bottom of a fraction. So you set this equal to 0. And you get -3/2. That's the number that makes it 0. Well, you can't have that number. You can't use it at all. You can use every other number. You can have negatives in the bottom. You can have positives in the bottom. You just can't have 0. So there's an open circle there, and you can use all of that part of the number line. So -infinity to -3/2 in union with -3/2 to infinity. Notice I have parentheses here. They go with open circle. Bracket goes with the colored circle. Okay? Now, one more thing. If I have 1 over the square root of x plus 7, now I'm kind of putting it all together. Well, the rule for the square root is that it can't be negative. But since it's in the bottom of the fraction, you have to cover that rule too. It also can't be 0. So x plus 7 equals 0. X is -7. That number in this case cannot be used because it makes the bottom 0. So you can only use -7 to positive infinity. Okay? Those are the kind of things they're asking you for domains. Now, if there's no fraction or no radical, if it's just a problem, say like 2x squared plus 4x plus 3, the domain is from -infinity to positive infinity. There's no restriction unless you have fractions or you have radicals. That's when you have to worry about it. Anything else. Now, if you have a fraction and the thing on the bottom is a regular number, there's no restrictions there either. Okay? Is there another question? Lesson 10, section 1. Which problem did y'all say? Did y'all ask me for a particular problem? Chapter 10, section 1. Anybody? Just a few, let's see, there's a chat right there. She's saying 5. Okay, I got you. I can't minimize. Okay, I'm not trying to. Okay. Then let's go over here. Lesson 10, question 5. Okay, f of x is x plus 9, g of x is x minus 9. And you're doing f plus, f minus, f times, f over. Okay. Question 5, is there any way you could send this recording to me? I'm hoping I can. What I've done is tried to record this thing. I've never done this before, but when I get done, I'm going to try to figure out how to send it to you. So hopefully I can, because I told Zoom to record it. So if there's any way I can, I will. Now, these are your two functions, and the first thing they're asking you to do is to add f plus g of x. So you just add them together. x plus 9 plus x minus 9. Add like terms. The parentheses really don't have a whole lot of meaning here because we're adding instead of subtracting in the middle. The answer to that is simply 2x. The domain for that is all real numbers because you don't have anything under the fraction bar and you don't have anything under a radical. Okay? The next one asks us to subtract them. X plus 9 minus x minus 9. Now this one you got to pay attention because we are distributing here. X plus 9 minus x plus 9. So the x's go away. This time it's 18. Your domain is all real numbers. 18, it doesn't matter what x is, the answer is always going to be 18. Then they ask us to multiply them, f of g of x, which is x plus 9, times x minus 9. You need to use FOIL. X squared minus 9x plus 9x minus 81. Terms in the middle go away. X squared minus 81. The domain is still all real numbers because I don't have anything under the fraction bar and I don't have anything under the radical. The last one they're going to ask you to do is divide f over g of x, and that is x plus 9 over x minus 9. You have restrictions here. X can't be 9 or it would make the denominator 0. So on the number line, you wouldn't be able to use that. You could use everything else. So from negative infinity to 9 in union with 9 to infinity. That would be your domain. All the other domains for that would be all real numbers. Do you have something else you need me to do? Chapter 10, Section 3, Question 9. Okay. You graph the following parabola. Give the vertex, the axis, the domain, and the range. Okay. In order to graph this, you need to let me write it on the board. Negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 13. Okay. In order to find the vertex, you want to use the formula negative b over 2a and then f of negative b over 2a. So this is a, this is b, and this is c. So we get negative 8 over 2 times negative 2. So that's negative 8 over negative 4, which is 2. So the x part of the vertex is 2. Now you're going to plug that back in here and here to find the y. So you're going to have negative 2 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2 minus 13. Okay? Gives me negative 5. This is your vertex. When you turn your graphing tool on your computer, you're going to go to 2, negative 5, and you're going to put a dot. Now, because this is negative, because that 2 is negative right there, means it's an upside down parabola. So when you put your dot on there, you're going to drag this direction. And here's what you got to do. You got to also tell it about the axis. Well, the axis of symmetry is always that x part of your, I don't think y'all can see that. Axis of symmetry is always the x part of your vertex. So it's always x equals 2 for this. If whatever you get for negative b over 2a is always your axis of symmetry. So it asks for the vertex. It asks for the axis of symmetry, which is the line where x equals 2, which would be this line right here. It's going to do this way. Now you're going to put this in your graphing calculator. I would put it in here. Y equals negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 13. So I'll put that in here. I would graph it. There it is. I would go to the table. On the table of values, when x is 2, you're going to see the negative 5. That's doing a real good job of getting clear on that. And then you would go down and just make sure that your graph goes through another point located on here. For instance, I see 3, negative 7. So when I would be graphing this, I would be sure that I pull this down to 3, negative 7, and what you'll do is if you either get one on this side or one on this side, and the computer will make the other side match it. So that's how you graph it. Let's see if there's another question over there. Domain and range of that, okay? Again, that function right here, it doesn't have anything in its denominator, doesn't have anything on the bottom under a radical, so the domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity, all real numbers. Now, let's look at the graph up here. There's really nothing going on in the graph up here. It starts at the point right here where it's what, 2, negative 5. Nothing goes on up here. So the domain is everything. All across this, no matter where you stand on the x-axis, you look down, you're going to see part of this thing. It's just going to get wider and wider as we go. But if you're standing up here on the y-axis and you look around, there's nothing going on. The only place on the y-axis where there's stuff happening starts at negative 5 and goes to negative infinity. That is your range. Your range is from negative 5 to negative infinity, the part of the graph that's covered by the part of the y-axis that will have something, if you look around, it will have something to do with the parabola. Okay, did that help? Did that hurt? Do you need me to do another one like that? Is there another question? It helped, but why the brackets? You use the brackets when you can actually use that number. And since at negative 5, you really can be there in that problem, you use a bracket on negative 5, but you never bracket infinity. Okay, you never bracket infinity. So that's why you use the brackets there. When you are asked about domain and you would have an open circle, like we did earlier with negative 3 over 2, because it made it equal 0 in the bottom, then is when you would see the parenthesis, is when you would have an open circle. That's parenthesis. Okay, next question. Any other questions from chapter 10? Question 12 through 18 in section 2. We're drawing the graphs. I mixed up the negatives and couldn't figure those out. 12 through 18 in section 2. 10-2. And we'll just start with number 12. Sketch the graph of the quadratic function. State the vertex and give the equation for the axis. Okay. It says x minus 4 all squared, and they want you to give the vertex and the axis and draw the graph. Now, if you click on, I don't even think y'all can see what I wrote. If you click on help, it's probably going to tell you to use the vertex formula. But what you could do here is you could just FOIL this out. It would be x squared minus 4x plus 16, x squared minus 8x plus 16. You can just simply get it in this form, and then you know a is 1, b is -8, and c is 16. Then to find the vertex, it's -b over 2a, and then you plug that number back in, f of -b over 2a. So our first part of our vertex would be negative b, so it'd be -8, which is regular 8, over 2 times a, which is 1, and 8 over 2 is 4. So our x part is 4. Then you're going to plug that 4 here, not there, we're not going to that one, we're going here, here, and here. So you would have 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 16. I don't want to make a mistake since we're recording. I don't want that to be documented. Goodness gracious. And what I get there is 0. So my vertex is 4, 0. And the axis of symmetry is always that part right there of your vertex, x equals 4. That is your axis of symmetry. Can y'all see that? This is your vertex. And that's your axis of symmetry. And then if you need to graph it, I'd put it in my graphing calculator and look at my table. I can look at another one of those. I don't want to do that. Okay. Let's look at 13. 13 is the same thing. It says x plus 1 squared minus 4. Okay, your bell is about to ring. Okay, here's what I want you to do. If there's other problems that you have questions about, that you're lost on, send me an email. Say, these are the ones that are bothering me, and I'll try to make a video and send to you. Or I can try to get in touch with you tomorrow. I got in service tomorrow. I don't know what time y'all could get in touch tomorrow. But I can also Zoom with y'all next week. Text me, 870-904-2938. Email me, send me those little links on Ask My Instructor, and I will get back with you one way or another. We'll use some kind of technology to try to get information from here to there. Okay? Any other questions today?
Wait a second. What did you say your number was?
870-904-2938. Sometimes it's easier to take a picture of what you're working on and send it in text.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
Okay. Okay. Share. Recording. Pause recording.